Okay, there you go, Rose.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. It's been a number of years now since I've done a talk with you. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. I have spoke for the dystonia group a couple of times now, and today we're going to talk about pain management. I have had in my practice, I have a number of patients that I've treated with dystonia and Parkinson's dystonia combinations as well. So I do have some good information in good knowledge behind that as well. But today I always get into diet and how diet affects our pain or whatever I'm talking about, because diet has everything to do with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the first slide about the principles, and I'm going to try not to mess this up. And I might close this. I have on my end, I can see the people over here. I might close that. Is that okay? Okay. Let me see if I don't know how to, oops, it is a, hold on. Okay, maybe I'll just leave it like it is. Um, so the basics of traditional Chinese medicine diet. And I love this image here that you can see on your screen there. The image of qi. The concept of qi is like it's energy, it's life force. There's many different ways to describe it. But what this is when you look at the bottom of it, there's the top part, and that's steam coming off of the top of the character. Do you guys you all see that too, Martha? Yeah, okay. Um, that steam coming off, and this is basically like a soup. This is like an example of like soup and soup steaming up. So that's example of chi that we need the container, we need the fire in our bodies to create energy and energy which also could be described as chi in Chinese medicine. So diet is a huge way we do that. We're born with a certain constitution with things we can't change, like the color of our eyes or the or how tall we are and things like that. But we can get the best benefits of our life by eating a good diet, right? Good mindset, good diet, um, good relationships in our life will help to support our chi. So the first thing that will, so this is the chi. So the first thing is the key principles of a traditional diet. So there's a lot of different opinions with like what's the best diet. And really, in my opinion, the best diet is what works best for you. But some very traditional ideas would be doing foods that are more cooked. So what I mean by that is soup, steamed vegetables, things that are cooked. They're not cold. Our body is 98.6 degrees, so we're warm, right? Our body is warm. So in Chinese medicine, I like to think of, especially here in California, where it's a little bit warmer here. I mean, it's cold to us, but people that live in cold places, it's probably very warm here. But is to do about 70% of your diet cooked. So that could be like oatmeal, cooked oatmeal, soup, steamed vegetables, stir fries, those sorts of things, because your body is warm. You'll digest your food better with that concept. Of course, there's a lot of pushback sometimes with this, but this is a traditional concept in Ayurvedic medicine from India, and almost all the traditional medicines use cooked foods. We can get more nutrients out of them. We also want to use all the different flavors in our diet. So with the different flavors would be sour. So things like sour would be lemon, and many other sour examples, but lemon's a great example. Very good for cleansing and detoxifying in our body. Oftentimes people do hot water with lemon in the morning to help with their digestion, moving their bowels, supporting their liver. Bitter is another one. Bitter, like baby greens, like when you have a small salad of like arugula and greens, that would be a very good example of bitter. We want to try to get all these flavors throughout the day in our diet. The easiest one to get, of course, is sweet because everybody likes sweet. Fruit would be a great example of that. Also spicy. We use a lot of spicy can come with the actual spices we use, things like cinnamon and cayenne. Again, many other examples. Salty would be good quality salt, like Himalayan salt, like a little bit of that. You don't want to go crazy with salt. Or seaweed is also an example of salty. And then there's also a concept of bland. Many of the bases of what we're cooking is oftentimes bland, right? Like rice is bland. A lot of the grains are bland. They're not overly sweet. So that's a kind of our base of how we cook. So all these flavors have to do with the different organ systems in the body, and they all help to nourish all the different aspects of our organ systems, the different pathways in our body where we put the acupuncture points and things like that. They help to move all that energy in our body. By eating those different things, we're nourishing all of our different aspects of everything going on in our bodies. The other thing is to eat with the seasons. In California here, we're really lucky. We have a lot of farmers markets. That's a wonderful way to eat with the seasons. What we mean oftentimes, especially for those who live in colder climates, it's not eating a lot of like cold stuff in the winter, right? In the winter, you do more soups, you do more warm things. In the summer, you can get away with cooler things. Like watermelon is a really good example of something that's very cooling, right? That's why watermelon is available in the summertime. Also, eating regularly and being very mindful of chewing your food. Different people, eat at different times. Whatever is regular for you would be best. Some people only eat 2 times a day. That's fine too, as long as that it's balanced. But I would try to eat probably more like 3 times a day with some sense of balance to how we do that. The body really likes balance. It's easier to find more it's easier to get your system back to balance when you're already doing balance with the regular things that you do every day, right? So it's easier to decrease your pain or have better sleep and things like that is if you try to create routines. The body likes routines, right? So, and then eating also with moderation and enjoying what you eat. So when you eat something that you know you shouldn't, don't beat yourself up too much and try to find your balance with that later. Also getting too hyper focused on doing everything right all the time is not your best bet. Your best bet is to try to shoot for probably 70% of the time doing your best and most balanced diet. And then the last thing here is drink warm water or herbal teas. So herbal teas would be things that are non-caffeinated. So peppermint tea, ginger tea, hibiscus tea, rosemary tea. These are all things, the warmth of the warm water helps with digestion, and it will also help with absorption. And most of the herbal teas that are aromatic, so aromatic having a really strong scent like peppermint, ginger, um, lavender, even chamomile has a mild kind of floral scent. Those all can help with our digestive abilities to absorb our nutrients in food. If we're getting that more of that those nutrients out of our food, then we're going to have less pain and inflammation, basically. So moving right along here. So the next thing I included, and on the outline that I sent, there's some links in here with the outline that you can click on. You should be able to click on them. And this, I love Dr. Wiles. I don't know if you all know who he is, but Dr. Wiles has a very good anti-inflammatory food pyramid. And on the outline, there's a link to it. And it's great because it shows this image, which I think is a little bit cut off because I'm not that good at doing a PowerPoint. So I did my very best to get this up here and make it as pretty as I could. But his breakdown of the anti-inflammatory foods and he gives very detailed recommendations of what he recommends on the food pyramid. So when you look it up online, he'll give a lot of really good detailed information as well. But just the pyramid is really cool to have, maybe to put that on your fridge or something like that as a reminder of how we want to eat with more balance. So there's many foods. The number one way to help with pain is always to work with our diet first, right? To decrease inflammation in whichever way we can. So you guys can look at the this anti-inflammatory Dr. Wiles on your own at home. But a couple of things that I've mentioned in our outline here is eating protein 3 times a day. 3 times a day with protein, it will help stabilize our blood sugar. It helps to give us more energy. It helps with it's protein is essential to helping with our muscles and our muscle strength and function, especially with people with things like dystonia, where there's more spasming and more issues with the control of the muscles. A little more protein can be helpful as well because those muscles are getting worn out a little bit faster, right? The examples of proteins would be things like a great example of a vegetarian protein combination that's wonderful would be rice and beans. Any kind of beans with like a brown rice is a great, perfect kind of protein combo. Quinoa is also a fantastic way to get protein. Dairy, if you can handle dairy, a little bit of dairy can help. Eggs, fish, obviously meat, chicken, things like that. Um, Depending upon your what's going on with your body and your other health issues, protein usually I don't so much recommend to people a certain amount of grams of protein because many people, like if you're dealing with any kidney issues, you don't want to eat too much protein. So that'd be something for specifically for your healthcare provider, but that is looking at your whole picture. But protein, like eating it 3 times a day is such a great way to help with just feeling more grounded, having more energy, and it definitely is going to nourish your muscles. So it could be as little as like half a cup of protein or a quarter cup, depending upon the person, right? So everybody's bodies are different, their sizes are different. So that would really be specific to that particular person. And I put down on my this food as medicine, soups, stir fries, smoothies, and bowls. I think that those are great ways to get everything in one place. I love to get everything in one place. I work pretty long hours here at my clinic, and I love soup for that reason. I love rice and beans and chicken and vegetables all in one bowl for that reason. So it's a really easy way. And a lot of those things, like especially soup, I can't say enough about soup. I could go on for days. And I did put a recipe at the end of your outline, a couple of recipes. I mean, soup is pretty straightforward, but I know some people don't cook as much, so I decided I better just throw soup into the a soup recipe into the mix. But soup is great because you can freeze it, right? You can freeze it and have it later. The longer it sits, it's like spaghetti sauce. The more different the flavors become. If you get sick of the soup and you want a little something different with the soup, you can throw some beans in, you can throw some rice in later. It's just a great way to get all your nutrients, and you can put so many vegetables in soup, right? So many vegetables. So that's a good way. Smoothies, you want to be careful again with too many cold things, but smoothies are another way to get a good amount of protein in the day by doing a little bit of yogurt or protein powder. Frozen spinach is great in smoothies, and doing things like blueberries and black cherries. Those are fantastic ways to get more anti-inflammatory foods in your diet. So that would be the other thing would be to eat whole foods. So whole foods are pretty much things that you're making from scratch. I know like a lot of people are not cook, so that might be a little bit hard. But there's a lot of services now that you can get food from, so maybe doing a little bit of both. But whenever you can, trying to make food that is fresh, unprocessed, organic would be most ideal, and hormone free. The An example of unprocessed fresh food is just walking into the produce aisle, right, and buying food from the produce aisle. Um, and again, I'm one of those people. When I make food for myself at least twice a week, and I make large quantities of it, and then I make it versatile so I can throw something in it if I get bored with it. I don't tend to get bored with my food. I could kind of eat the same thing forever and ever. I'm a big believer, or I'm a big fan, I should say, and believer, I guess, of sweet potatoes. They're very good for you. They're a good source of fiber. They're a really easy one to play with if you bake sweet potatoes ahead of time. So that's another way to, that's a good example of a food that you can cook them ahead of time and then reheat them with some chicken and some steamed broccoli. That's a very, very good combination of food that is very well balanced for your diet. So whole foods, and of course organic whenever you can. Buying organic foods, there's definitely a good amount of information out there that eating organic foods is better for your health. Pesticides are toxic to our water. Whenever you can, buying organic foods at farmers markets oftentimes have either unsprayed foods or organic foods. That's not always true, but Whole Foods, Sprouts, all of those grocers will have it as well. The pesticides definitely have some connections to more inflammation, potentially more cancer in areas where there's more pesticide use and people are out in the fields where pesticides are being used. There's a higher risk of birth defects and a higher risk of cancer in those places. So whatever we can do to limit that is great. And then, of course, using alcohol and caffeine in moderation. Um, Caffeine, I mean, there's differing opinions with people with things like coffee. If you're drinking coffee, I'm a coffee drinker. You're never going to hear me say anything bad about it, um, except to drink organic coffee, right? But really, like, a cup or two a day for most people is probably more than enough, especially with muscle related inflammation. We don't want to overdo caffeine because it makes you more stiff and it really depletes your magnesium. And the magnesium is what helps our body magnesium is one of the number one things that helps our body to relax the muscles. So we really want to be careful with overdoing caffeine, right? And then alcohol, obviously, that goes without saying, being moderate about that. And then hydration. Hydration is basically whatever you weigh. Say if you weighed 100 pounds, you should try to get at least 50 ounces of water a day. If you weighed 150 pounds, you'd want to get 75 ounces of water a day. So basically, how the best tool with how much water should I drink is to, whatever your weight is, take divide that in half, and that's how many ounces of water you should get per day. That's the most ideal. Now, again, sometimes people have renal issues or kidney issues and they can't drink that much water. There's always going to be reasons why you maybe can't do that. So just, use good sense with that. But oftentimes people are like, oh, I drink plenty of water. My dad has been very problematic with this. He told me that he knows to drink more water if his pee is really yellow. I said, well, that is not the best way to do that, Dad. Um, so I got him a like a half gallon of water, like a nice glass container, and filled it up. I'm like, try to get at least 2/3 of this. It's very easy to see where 2/3 is. Really, yellow pee is not the best way to determine if you need more water. So that's a good example of what not to do. Um, but water is key. And also to remembering that a lot of the medications, when you have to take more medications, they tend to be a little bit more dehydrating. When you exercise, you need to replenish yourself if you sweat a lot, especially with more water too. And as we get older, our signal for water, like needing water, doesn't really work it very well anymore. So we have to remember that. Sometimes when you think you're hungry, you might actually just need water. So that's always a good trick is if you feel like, ooh, I want to eat something, is have some water and see if that satiates it. Because the hunger signal is often a thirsty signal. Not always, but often. And then the other thing I put on some of the basics here in the basics of diet is using caution with nightshades when it relates to you. Not everyone has problems with nightshades. So an example of nightshades, it's a really common one that they say to be cautious with nightshades when you have things like inflammatory issues like arthritis and things like that. So nightshades would be tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, eggplants. Now, some people have absolutely no problem with those. So the best way to try if that's a problem for you is to eat it and see if it creates more inflammation or you notice more pain, then don't do it, obviously. Many those foods are not bad. They just have a particular ingredient in them that can, for some people, create more inflammation. So I always like to make a note of that so you can see if that is true for you. When you cook them, which obviously you'd cook things like potatoes, but when you cook them, that decreases their inflammatory quality. But just so you know, not all people get inflammation from potatoes, not all people get inflammation from tomatoes or peppers. You just have to try that out for yourself. But when you cook those things, they're very, very good for you, especially things like tomatoes, right? They're a really good source of lycopene, which is great for men and their prostates. And when you saute them, if you put them in a soup or something like that and saute them, they're very good. Excuse me, also for your eyes, the prostate. They're supportive to the and nourishing to the blood, so very, very good for you. So you just have to try and see if they work for you. If they cause inflammation, then take them out of your diet. And then eating green vegetables daily. I mean, I could go on for days about this one. The green vegetables would be things like the cruciferous vegetables. We're talking broccoli, um, and kale, uh, chard. Those are the greens, spinach. They're alkalizing, they decrease inflammation. They tend to be best. Most of those green beans are also a good example of eating green vegetables. Green beans are so easy to just to do like boil up some water and put green beans in, when boiling water, it only takes about 7 minutes with fresh green beans. And they're a very good source of greens. And greens are alkalizing, so they decrease inflammation in the body. You can cook them ahead of time too and reheat them. I love myself some roasted broccoli with green beans and chicken with my sweet potato and a little bit of goat cheese. That's one of my favorite meals. I eat that sometimes almost every single day. It's filling and it's tasty and it's very clean and easy to make. They're also, a lot of the greens are high in sulfur, and the sulfur helps with decreasing inflammation as well, and very high in antioxidants. So greens, not enough can be said about our green foods. And then also looking at making sure that you're doing a more low sodium diet. It's another good reason to try to cook your own food and not eat as many things that are frozen that are frozen or in a can. And if you do eat frozen or canned things, is to watch the sodium on them because sometimes they can be up to 30% of your daily requirements. And sodium is definitely dehydrates your muscles and your joints. So it's inflammatory if you do too much of it. And you find more of it in processed foods. It's fine to use some salt, but and the best kind of salt usually would be like sea salts or the Himalayan pink salt. Those are really rich in minerals, so they tend to be far less dehydrating, and just using a small amount of that. So let me see. I can't remember what my next slide is. Okay, no, we'll stay here for now. The next thing I wanted to is just to point out some heavy hitters that I love as far as food. So specific foods that decrease pain and inflammation would be cherries. So black cherries in particular are exceptionally good for gout, for people who have gout. They're really, really good. Black cherries have traditionally been used for arthritis in the small joints. So that means like arthritis, like if you had arthritis in your toes, or if you had like a bunion that bothers you a lot, black cherries are fantastic for that. You can't get them all year long, but you can find them in the frozen section, organic black cherries. I've seen them at Costco before. I mean, who doesn't want to eat cherries? I mean, they're delicious. Life's a bowl of cherries. There's a good reason why they made that saying up, right? Because they're yummy. And very, very highly, and they're very good for your heart. They're good for decreasing inflammation. Even just like maybe 5 or 6 of them a day are fantastic for arthritis in the fingers, arthritis in the toes, but also systemically, they're rich in antioxidants. Then berries, all types of berries. Again, with berries, I would be really cautious with doing more organic berries. Again, at least here in California, with frozen berries, they're really easy to find. You can find them at Costco, you can find them at Sprouts, organic ones. When it's berry season, I would wash them and freeze them so you have them for the winter. The berries are antioxidant rich, anti-inflammatory. They're rich in flavonoids. They're good for helping with circulation. They're a really fantastic way to help decrease inflammation in the body. And those are like delicious. Like, how hard can that be to add that in as a snack, right? As a little sweet snack, you could do up to like between the two of them, up to half a cup a day if you wanted to. Again, they tend to be cleansing, so don't go too crazy because they will move your bowels quite a bit. Also, incorporating the spices. This is a way to get more of the different flavors that we were talking about earlier. Some of the key spices that you can cook with: turmeric, ginger. They're both very good for pain management. They're exceptional for digestion. They're very good for helping with circulation. They can be used in stir fries. You find, of course, turmeric and ginger in curries. You can drink them as a tea. I sometimes make a ginger turmeric carrot saute. I love that combo, with a little tiny bit of coconut oil, and I saute that. It's quite delicious as well. And I'll put that with like my sweet potatoes and my broccoli. I do that sort of thing, and it's a good way to get some more turmeric and ginger. Then cinnamon has traditionally been used for arthritis. It's also traditionally been used for heart health. It's good for immunity. It's good for the prevention of colds and flus. So in the winter time, using a little bit of cinnamon in your coffee, if you drink coffee, it's a really easy way to add that in. Just a shake of cinnamon in your coffee. People sometimes, when they are feeling like they're catching something, will do like a little teaspoon of honey with a small pinch of cinnamon, right? To help with immunity. Cayenne, you can put it in a lot of different things, soups. You find it in a lot of different sauces. Cayenne is a really excellent um, herb for helping with circulation, your joint health. It's great for migraines. It's used for a lot of different things to move, like move the chi in the body, but it is also very good for joint pain and nerve pain as well. So whatever you can do to cook more with that too would be great. So cayenne is one of those. And then our omega-3, and let me know if I'm talking too fast. The omega-3 foods are exceptional way to get more omegas in your diet. And one of my most favorite, and it's so darn easy to use, is chia seeds. You can find them at the health food store. What's great about chia seeds, there's a gazillion different ways that you can use them. You can put them in your smoothie. You can put them in some juice. They do get gelatinous. You can make a chia pudding. If you don't want to make it a big brouhaha, you just put it in your smoothie at the very end of your smoothie, or you can put it in your oatmeal at the very end of, like if you make your oatmeal and then put it in the oatmeal, because it really gets gelatinous. So you want to eat it like as soon as you put it in there. So chia seeds are very rich in omega-3s. They're also extremely high in fiber, and they are an exceptional source of magnesium. Chia seeds are, and they're very, very durable. So they're easy to work with. So they're like things like flax seeds are wonderful, but they're very perishable. Chia seeds are not as perishable. So they're easy to work with as a way to get omega. So chia seeds as a way to get more fiber. I believe that in 1 tablespoon, which is a lot of chia seeds, if you have not tried chia seeds, let's start with 1 teaspoon, especially if you have a tendency to have bowels that move easier. You want to start small. But in 1 tablespoon of chia seeds is like, I believe, 6 grams of fiber, which is a lot of fiber. And a very exceptional, it's one of the higher sources of magnesium in a food. So great for muscle tension, um, restless leg, that sort of things. And you can make, I don't know if you, and I could send this if somebody's interested in this. Healthline has a really good article. I don't know if you guys know Healthline. They have a great article on chia seeds, and then they have some recipes in there as well. So I can send that, or you can look that up, Healthline. That's a pretty common place to find good nutritional information. Other high omegas would be flax seeds. If you get the ground flax seeds and you put them in the fridge, that's the best way to manage your flax seed. And then you could put that again, you could put it onto your oatmeal or put it in your yogurt, right before you're going to eat it, because it's a little gelatinous as well. And those omega-3s are so essential to lubricating your joints. Our cells are made of a fatty of a are made of a lipid layer. So omega-3s help our cells work better. Um, you can buy them also in an oil form and make. There's a great brand called Udos, UDOS, and it's an oil that's found in the refrigerator. And oftentimes people use that to make salad dressings and things like that. Like it's a supplement, but you can use it as a salad dressing if you added a little bit of vinegar and some herbs and things like that as a way to get more omegas in your diet. And of course, fish and walnuts would also be a good example, especially salmon. And then our fermented foods are a way that we get our fermented foods would be our yogurt, raw sauerkraut, um, kefir, kombucha, if you guys know kombucha, kimchi, miso, the pickles that you find in the refrigerator, right? There's some at Costco that would be considered a fermented product. The ones on the shelf in the that are shelf stable, those would not be necessarily considered a fermented food, but fermented foods They help to give you more probiotics and more prebiotics, which is the good bacteria that's in your gut. And that good bacteria that's in your gut is what helps your body to absorb more of the nutrients that you need from your food. So they also, because they're good bacteria, they push out the bad bacteria in the gut, which will in turn help you with reducing your pain. It also is a wonderful way, especially if you can handle things like if you do okay with dairy and you can do yogurt or kefir. Those are wonderful ways to get a really absorbable form of calcium to strengthen the bones. So fermented foods are fantastic, and trying to like add that in if you could at least once a day, getting something fermented. I love raw sauerkraut. You don't need much sauerkraut in order to get, you can find it in the health food stores in the refrigerator. Like a tablespoon or so of sauerkraut is a pretty strong amount of probiotics. And then, as I said before, we kind of talked about this already, the herbal teas, things like mint, rosemary, and green tea. Those are all exceptional herbal herbs to help with reducing pain and things like that. So mint in particular is very good for muscle relaxation. It has an antispasmodic quality to it, and it's great for headaches. Peppermint is, or spearmint, any of the mints. Then rosemary, even if you grow rosemary out in your yard, you could do like a teaspoon of rosemary in hot water. Just be careful not to swallow the rosemary stems. They're pretty sharp. If you've got a little tea, one of those little metal tea holders, that's probably the best way to do it. But rosemary is fantastic for helping with circulation. It's great for memory. There's some good evidence about it being used for things like as an antioxidant for the brain, right? But it's very, very good for headaches. And it's also so easy to use with your food, especially when you do roasting. Like if you roast vegetables like cauliflowers or potatoes, throwing some rosemary on them is fantastic, right? It's an easy way to get some of it in. And again, I mean, I know I'm saying something that y'all already know, but be careful with those little stems, right? They get very, very, very sharp, and they can kind of irritate your throat. So just be a little cautious with eating the stem. It's the flavor that infuses from the rosemary that will help. You don't actually have to eat the stem. And then green tea. There's a ton of information out there about green tea, and it's anti-inflammatory and pain relieving. Um, its pain relieving effects. Great for joint health. And if you like it, if you're somebody that does well with green tea, a cup of green tea a day, you could maybe take, if you do coffee in the morning, but you need a little uplift in the afternoon, green tea is a great one to do in the afternoon. Some people are pretty sensitive to the caffeine. Even in green tea, it's much, much lower than it is in coffee. But green tea is an exceptional way to help with, to give you a little bit of lift. And it has something in it called theanine. And theanine is an ingredient that basically helps, it gives you a sense of calmness and alertness at the same time. So green tea, that combination, it gives you it's like, for many people, can help with anxiety, but help them also with focusing. The green tea can. So great in the like late afternoon. And then, as I said before, we talked about the cruciferous vegetables. Those are all going to be anti-inflammatory. Again, I talked about it before, but they're all the cruciferous vegetables be kale, cabbage, broccoli. What's great about these kind of vegetables, you can get a lot of the different colors. So the different colors, and Dr. Weil in his food pyramid, he talks about this as well, is we want to get all these different colors as a way to nourish our body. So different colors that make the foods like purple or orange or so on and so forth are good for different parts of our body. So the cruciferous, we get the kale, we get the cabbage, we have green cabbage, we have purple cabbage, yeah, purple cabbage. We have cauliflower would fit into that. So it's white. The white colored foods are very good as well for your brain. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, arugula, those are all great cruciferous vegetables and very high, and they tend to be very high in fiber as well. And again, sulfur rich. And then for those who are open to trying seaweed, seaweed is a very, very exceptional food for helping to get your minerals in. Seaweed is great for your bones. It's one of the highest content to help with bone health and inflammation. That my best recommendation is a there's a company called Maine, like the state of Maine, Maine Coast seaweed, and they're that is a really good brand, and they test their stuff to make sure that there's not contaminants in it. They almost can call it organic because of, I mean, you can't officially call it organic, but the way where it's growing in the north like that, it tends to be a better quality of seaweed, where certain seaweeds in certain areas of the world may contain contaminants because the seaweed pulls it in. So seaweed is something that is a great way to get more trace minerals, great for your bone health. And then pineapples and papaya, especially fresh. This is something, and I put a recipe at the end of our lecture here today. But pineapples are really high in proteolytic enzymes. So when you're having an inflammation or something like that, eating those on an empty stomach can reduce your inflammation in your body. And this time of year, you can get pineapples pretty easy. You can get them fresh easily. They also they're exceptionally good for digestion and calming the stomach too. So those would be like all my favorite foods for helping with pain and inflammation. And some of the nutrients that I made a little well, a fairly large list, I guess, of nutrients. It doesn't mean you need to do all of these. Everybody's situation is very different with what they may choose to do with their nutrients. I am a huge recommender of fish oil. I know that fish oil, sometimes there's some negative things about it, but I still have seen far more positive things about fish oil. The fish oil I personally use is a company called Carlson, and Carlson is just a very good quality company. I think they've been around for about 175 years making fish oil. It's exceptionally good it's anti-inflammatory, it's good for your brain, it's good for your heart, it's good for your joints. Over and over again, I recommend to my patients I recommend fish oil and turmeric and magnesium are the three things that I recommend the most. And people always tell me when they take it for about 2 or 3, especially if you're having issues with your joints, people will tell me like, I really notice a difference when I take fish oil, turmeric, and magnesium. They are exceptionally good at helping with joint health, inflammation, and muscle spasms. So our next one would be magnesium. And the best magnesium there's a number of different magnesiums, but the ones that most people are usually gravitating to would be citrate or glycinate. I like the magnesium glycinate. It's good for sleeping. It's good for muscle cramps and tension, and it doesn't tend to make the bowels move as much. Magnesium is a bit of it helps with constipation and moving the intestines. So you do want to be a little bit cautious with magnesium the first time you use it if you haven't used it. But it's exceptional for muscle relaxation. And the best time to take magnesium would be at nighttime before you go to bed. If you don't want to do it in the form, or if you're too sensitive to the laxative component of magnesium, almonds, chia seeds, as I said before, greens and molasses, those are all really rich sources. Also, seaweed would be a very good source of magnesium as well. And then glucosamine, I put on our list. I find that glucosamine is extremely helpful pain management for people who have a lot of ligament and tendon issues. However, glucosamine sulfate, it doesn't work for everyone. So my best recommendation, if you like have a knee that bothers you a lot or something, especially the knees, glucosamine is exceptional for the knees from my experience with my patients. Um, do it for 4 to 6 weeks regularly. Usually the dose is 1,500 milligrams. If after 6 weeks you do not notice anything, don't do it because it's just not going to, it doesn't work for everybody. But the people it works for exceptionally well. So, but most of the studies show that you need to, like, at about 6 weeks, if it's going to work, it's going to work. It doesn't mean it will go away, but you should notice a difference. So glucosamine, and then also bone, any kind of bone supplements. So what I meant there is things like calcium and magnesium. If you take a multivitamin, you'll get those in your multi. If you're a woman, and you're menopausal, it's probably a good idea to take a magnesium supplement. Most women usually are. There's a great brand that I recommend, a lot of brands. I'm not associated with them financially at all. I just have had many, many years of recommending supplements. So I tend to recommend supplements that I know. And there's a great brand called Jarrow, Jarrow, and they have a product called Bone Up. And Bone Up is one of my favorite calcium formulas for helping with strengthening the bone. There's some research on there's an ingredient in there called microcrystalline hydroxyapatite, which actually comes from bones. And they've done research on that with the astronauts, because right when the astronauts go into space, they lose some bone density. So that particular product has the one that's not, there's a vegetarian one, and then there's a non-vegetarian one that is a yellow packaging. It's that one, the Jarrow Bone Up. And depending upon with your doctors, it used to be that they would recommend like 1,500 milligrams of calcium, but it seems like that the endocrinologists that are the ones that deal with bone health, that now that number has changed. So I would check with them if you have osteoporosis, what their recommendation would be with calcium, with how much calcium you should take. I haven't seen them recommending things like 1,500. I've seen them doing things like 500 to 1,000, but it seems to be very specific, especially if you're doing shots or something like that for bone density. They usually recommend that too, which also brings up, and I put this in our notes as well, is the I believe I did. Yes, I did. At the very end of our outline, the is bone broth. If you are a vegetarian, you can do a vegan bone broth, and I did add that in at the very end of the outline. It's called the wallflowerkitchen.com, and it's a vegetable bone broth, so there's no bone in it. It's a vegan bone broth that you can make yourself. And then I also included the Wellness Mama bone broth. So bone broth is a excellent way to strengthen your bones. It's an excellent source of collagen. All of these things are also have an anti-inflammatory quality to them as well. There's a reason why, like all the cultures, the traditional cultures use bones in their soups, is because it is so nutritious. It's a great way. It's great for your immunity. It's great for your bones. It's just great for your overall collagen. It's great for your skin. It's great for your joints. So if you can, a great thing to do is to make a bone broth of either a vegan. If you're not an animal eater, then the vegan bone broth is good too. They use seaweed in that one. And then what you can do is you let that cool off after you make it. It takes a while to make it. In the instant, if you have an instant pot, it's faster, but not crazy fast. And then what you do, and they'll mention this in the links that I gave you, is that you let it cool off and then you put it into ice cubes right? So whenever you make a stir fry or you're having like some a steam vegetable, you could put that on top of there as a way to get bone broth every day. If you don't want to drink it, you could put it in your rice. You can many different ways to get it, and it's one of the most nutritious things that you can get for this, like for your bones, inflammation, collagen, all of that. So I can't, there's not enough. I could go on and on for days. I could go on and on. And then of course, vitamin D, I'd recommend also with vitamin D is very good. There's a huge connection with osteoarthritis and inflammation with vitamin D, with people's mental health and vitamin D. It the with naturopaths, their optimal range in on a blood test should be somewhere between 70 to 90. As people get older, the doctors are more likely to do a D test to see where you're at. And it's a vitamin D revolution right now. Lots of people probably are on vitamin D that I'm talking to right now. But vitamin D is great for inflammation and pain in the body as well. So if you haven't taken it, then you could always ask your doctor to do a blood test and see how that goes. Now, vitamin D, one thing to remember with vitamin D is our vitamin D is absorbed in our gut. So this is another good reason to do the probiotic foods. And if the probiotic foods aren't enough, you can also buy probiotic in capsules. But to do the probiotic foods to help with the absorption of vitamin D. That's very important. And also getting a little bit of sun can help with vitamin D. You know, going outside and getting a bit of sun would help too. And then I put in here also turmeric. Turmeric is one of my very favorite brands of turmeric is a company called Gaia, Gaia. You can find it at the health food stores all over the country. Their turmeric is exceptionally good. There's many good ones out there. I find that the concentrates are the best ones. You can always check with your doctor about turmeric if you're taking other medications, but I have found that most of the doctors that I have interacted with through my patients are fine with turmeric because there's so much evidence about turmeric and its anti-inflammatory and anti-pain um, benefits that it's one that they oftentimes will recommend. So the turmeric, whoops, and I should have gone to here. This isn't that exciting. This is my unexciting slide. I was trying to figure something out over there with the pills and the vegetables in the background. So let's see, I lost my track here. So vitamin D and then collagen, as I talked about before. So you can get collagen in bone broth, and you can also buy collagen in powder form. Um, the powder form of collagen, sometimes people get a little bit of a stomach ache from collagen if you do too much of it. It's an exceptional source of protein. So if you're one of those people that has a hard time getting protein and you don't, um, it does come from animals most of the time. There are vegetarian collagens, but they're not as high in protein. The collagen that comes from animals would be the highest level of protein, but I would say the recommendations on the bottles with collagen tend to be really high recommendations of collagen, and then people report back to me that it hurt their stomach. So start with like I would start like with a quarter of the dose and see how you do. And collagen is so thin, like the way that they do it. There's a good one at oh gosh, now I'm not going to remember the name of this one. Vital. I could look it up for you guys if you want me to, but after we're done talking, it's at Costco and it's a powdered collagen that's exceptional. It's Vital Nutrients or something like that. It comes in a blue container, but that one's a very good concentrate of collagen. And again, another way to get collagen is going to help with your bones, your ligaments. It's going to decrease inflammation. It's a wonderful protein, and collagen also is high in protein. So it's great in coffee if you drink coffee in the morning with your cinnamon, right? It's also fantastic in oatmeal. It doesn't get clumpy or weird in oatmeal. And it's a great way to make your oatmeal high protein. So put your like berries in there, some of your berries, your cinnamon, your collagen. That's a very good way to start the day. You're getting your protein that way. You're getting some high fiber from the oatmeal, and you're also getting your berries, which are highly anti-inflammatory. And since you're there, you could throw in a couple cherries as well. And then I threw in some like the topical treatments. So topical treatments, if you guys don't know about arnica, arnica is not as much used for chronic pain. However, some people do get some benefits from arnica for chronic pain. It does have an internal version. I most regularly use arnica for topical. Arnica topically is exceptional for pain for muscle strains and any kind of muscle like spasms and things like that. It comes in a gel form, bruises. It's great for bruises. So it's very easy to use. It's not oily and messy. So it's very easy to put on. So arnica you can find it even in like CVS. You can find it at the health food store. You can find it at the drugstore. Very good, generally speaking, for acute muscle soreness. There is a brand that it's called T, like the letter T, and then relief. And you can find that at the health food store. You can find it on Amazon too. And it's a homeopathic formula that it's a combination of things like arnica that are used for pain and muscle pain, joint pain. It's kind of a like shotgun formula of different homeopathics for pain. And what's nice about it for when people like they can't do turmeric because they're on a blood thinner, they can't do fish oil, they can't do these other things. Oftentimes the homeopathics, they don't have those side effects. So the homeopathics can be very helpful. So T relief, like the letter T and then relief. And again, you can text me or excuse me, you can email me and I can send you that link. It's very easy to find. They make a cream as well as a gel. And then, of course, in Chinese medicine, we use a lot of tiger balm. Tiger balm is a mixture of. You can find it again at the health food store, or online, obviously. It's cinnamon, it's camphor. You go to different Asian parts of the world, and everybody has their own special tiger balm that's the best tiger balm. I use a small amount of it on my patients when I do cupping or if somebody's got an ache and pain somewhere. I put it on the neck. I always dilute it. It's a very strong topical. It's got a lot of menthol in it. So I just do a tiny, tiny smidge on my hand, like almost like don't put it on your lips, but like if you were to put lip gloss on your or like lip balm on your lips, like you just use a little tiny bit. That's the amount that you use with Tiger Balm, and you can mix it in lotion or oil and put it on your knee, your elbow, wherever it's bothering you. But it does have menthol, so you do need to be cautious with that. And all of those, the menthols are fantastic for pain. And it also, the red tiger balm, which is my favorite, there's a red and a white one. The red one is really good for chronic pain. I find the white one is better for acute pain. The red one tends to be a little bit more warming for people who have more chronic pain. And they even make patches. You know how they make lidocaine patches? They make tiger balm patches as well that are quite exceptional as well to help with that. And then I have had a little bit of experience with capsaicin. You can find that at things like the pharmacy. It's used for neuropathy. I would say I mention it because some people have such wonderful help with it. It's very, very good for nerve pain. There's some good studies that show using it for things like neuropathy in the feet, but you need to be really careful with it because for it does have a burny kind of quality. So if you're going to try it a little tiny, tiny bit and make sure that your body does okay with it. The VA has done, I believe it's the VA has done some studies on capsaicin, topical capsaicin with neuropathy. with some good results. So neuropathy is tricky to deal with, especially in the feet. So that's something to think about. But again, use a very, very small amount of it and before you just smear it on your whole foot or something. And then some people also use magnesium oil or Epsom salts. I love Epsom salt baths. If it's too difficult for you to get in and out of the bathtub, soaking your hands, you'll get them, the Epsom salts will soak in, will get into your bloodstream to some degree. I mean, it's not a high amount of magnesium that would get into your bloodstream, but just like if you, especially if you had pain in your hands, doing Epsom salt soaks with your feet, Epsom salt soaks with your hands, like make it easy. If you can get in and out of the bathtub easy, do it in the bathtub. There, it's one of the best ways to reduce muscle tension, a kind of muscle tension and pain is Epsom salts, and very easy to come by. They're also, and you should double check me on this, but from what I've been told is that Epsom salts also, if you're trying to conserve your water, Epsom salts also, and you're doing excuse me, like a little soak of your hand or feet. If you keep that water, you can keep that water, and that water can be used to water your roses. That the magnesium, the Epsom salt, roses tend to like that. So not rose like the, well, I like it, but rose the plant. And you can also find magnesium oils where people use magnesium topically as a way to help with muscle tension. Again, with the magnesium oils and like using it on your calves and stuff like that for muscle spasms or restless leg, you need to try a very small amount initially and to make sure that that will work for you. Um, some people are really sensitive to magnesium oil and it burns their skin. Initially, you'll notice a little bit of burn, but if the burn continues, then you need to take it off and not use it. So you'll notice it a little bit and then it should back off. The same thing with capsaicin. You notice it a little bit and then it should back off. If it does not back off, that's why you use a small amount of it, then it's not for you. Not everything is for everyone, right? And then castor oil, I use tons of castor oil. It's a mess. I'm not going to lie to you. It makes a huge mess. If you see anything on if you are on Instagram and you just even put castor oil in for a second, you'll find a gazillion castor oil things to do with castor oil in your belly button, castor oil on your lashes. I got castor oil on your eyebrows. Castor oil has traditionally been used topically for inflammation. You can find a lot of these castor oil packs where that you can reuse and sleep overnight with. If that's something you're interested in, you can reach out to me or Martha, you can reach out to me and I can send a link for that from Amazon. Castor oil overnight on your back, on your low back, can be very, very helpful for reducing inflammation and pain. So I am a big fan of castor oil topically. Also for people with hand pain and finger pain in their joints, there's these little castor oil packs that you can use on the fingers. Again, it is a mess. If you are really attached to your sheets, these packs that you can use overnight are not, they sometimes leak. So basically they're fantastic for pain management, but they are messy. Castor oil is a messy one. So if you need any recommendations on how to make it less messy and how to make it work best, you can reach out to me and I can help you with that. I use it with almost every single patient. I use castor oil on their spine. I love castor oil on the spine when I'm treating somebody face down as a way to really relax the muscles and calm the nerves on the spine. It really feels good and it's very anti-inflammatory as a topical and anti-pain. And then I put down in our topical treatments, hot cold therapy. Hot cold therapy is another one this is like my picture isn't that great, but the hot cold therapy has traditionally been used by many people for thousands of years, right? Jumping in the frozen pond and then getting in the hot sauna. Very good for like circulation and pain relief. It's not for everybody. Not everybody's a cold, hot person. I personally love it. It becomes a little bit addictive, like hot, cold. I sometimes go to some of the Asian spas where they have the really, 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 really hot sauna rooms, and then they have the cold plunge. That's one of my favorite things. It's so invigorating and energizing, and a great way to do hot cold therapy. But an easier way at home is to use something like a heating pad and a cold compress that's specifically for the body, and go back and forth. Some people, like when they think about their pain, they really gravitate towards heat. And I would say for most chronic pains, heat would be the best way. But sometimes when someone has more of an acute pain, or like say you have chronic pain, but then something has gotten worse all of a sudden because you strained yourself in the garden, or getting in the bathtub or something like that, then hot cold can be very helpful. My personal feeling with hot and cold is that you should do hot, cold, hot. Usually you can do hot a little bit longer, like 10 to 15 minutes, where cold is maybe 5 minutes or so, and then end on hot. If something is more inflamed, then you usually do cold, hot, cold. But there's, a lot of it with hot and cold therapy is to see what feels best for you. Sometimes people use it with arthritis in their hand. They'll do like an ice bath. Like if you have arthritis in your fingers that flares and swells, what people will sometimes do is that they'll do the hot Epsom salt bath, and then they have the ice bath right next to it, and then you cool yourself down with that as a way to constrict the joints. But if that doesn't feel good, then don't do it. But if that sounds good, sometimes that can be very exceptionally helpful for people with their joints, pain in their joints. And then, of course, I put some great aromatherapy. Aromatherapy always needs to be diluted. You can find a lot of aromatherapy already diluted in lotions and oils. Lavender is let's see, and then we'll move to this one. Lavender, great for calming. It should always be diluted. It's great to do a little bit of it on the bottom of your feet before you go to bed at night. It has an anti-inflammatory quality. It also is very good for sleeping. Very, very good for sleeping. Peppermint is more a wake me up kind of aromatherapy. Again, it must be diluted, a very, very small. You can find them sometimes in these little roller bottles that they're already diluted. Peppermint, fantastic around the on the temples for people who get migraines or headaches, or in the back of the neck for migraines and headaches. And a little bit of peppermint goes a long way. So you don't want to overdo the peppermint. And wintergreen would fall into that same category. Um, and then frankincense. Frankincense is it's one that, it's been used forever, since way back in some of our biblical stories. We see frankincense, and frankincense is another one. Again, all of the aromatherapy, you always want to dilute it. You can find it diluted frequently in the health food store in these roller balls. But frankincense is very good for inflammation too. It has a strong kind of like earthy, sweet quality. It doesn't smell like patchouli, but it's in that direction. So some people don't like that smell. So you got to smell it first and see what you think. I have a lot of issues with my skin because I wash my hands so much, and I have very dry skin because of that. And I've had issues with eczema since I was a little girl. And the frankincense and the lavender, I have a lotion that I mix together with frankincense and lavender, and it's very healing for my skin. But I find when I put it on my knees, and I every now and then I get an elbow thing because I use my arms a lot and I do a lot of body work with what I do in my clinic. That the lavender and the frankincense are very good topicals that are anti-inflammatory. So I would definitely recommend that too. And then the next thing is our microcosms. So in Chinese medicine, pretty much there's tons of microcosms, but I'll just tell you that the ears are a microcosm, and I love this image here. Your whole body is in your ear. So when you look at the ear, basically, it's like a fetus in utero. So the very bottom of the ear is like is would be the head, and then like as if the baby was curled up getting ready to go out of the mother's womb, right? So they'd be kind of head first with their arms up like this, and as you can see, like with where the fingers are and the shoulder is and things like that. So the ear is an exceptional place to massage your ears gently, gently massage your ears. Very invigorating. It can be very calming. You can also use some of the essential oils in the ears. This one, if you see on the ear acupressure points, there's a point that's right up, not at the very top, but a point that's called Shen Men, Shenmen. And if you go to your ear, if you go to your ear and then you go to like there's this area in your ear where it dips in into the ear. And that point, you're pretty much in on the edge of that there, as you can see in the picture, that is Shen Men. You don't have to have it be so specific as it is on this chart. But what you do is put a little bit, Shen Men is a very good one for balancing, like balancing the whole body. So sometimes what you can do, you can put your finger on, it's on both sides, your right and your left ear. It's right at the top there, but in the ear. So we're in the ear, as you can see, and you can massage that point in your ear. Okay. So I'll bring my ear. So I'm talking about like right there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but wonderful for massaging and helping with calming and balancing the system. And then, of course, you can also massage your ears. You can kind of pinch your ears. That's a good way to wake up, right? To pinch your ears. You stimulate your whole body when you pinch the ears, right? You can go kind of into the ears and just gently push and stimulate the whole body. Very energizing way. And then I put down feet and hands. I didn't make a just because we only have so much time, but the feet as well as the hands are a microcosm of the whole entire body. Microcosms mean that you could see the whole body in the ear, and you could see the whole body in the hand, and the whole body in the feet. So massage your hands and feet. You know, if you can't reach your feet, you can probably reach your hands and massage your hands, just massaging your whole hand, pulling your fingers out gently, using some of the oils that you like to use, really getting into the palm, like the palm of the hand. This is where all the organs are. The internal organs are all in here and in here. So really massaging into these areas is a great way to help with pain management too. And then the next thing that I have put down is tapping for pain. I don't know if you guys are familiar with tapping, but tapping is basically you're using acupuncture points, and you're using these acupuncture points to help with pain. So the first thing when we do tapping, and there's a ton of videos online where you can watch somebody. I'll do it in just a second. The It's used for pain management. It's also used for calming. It's used for calming and pain management mostly. So the first thing you do, and this is in your notes, in your outline notes, the first thing we would do is we would define where is the pain in my body. The pain. So we get more specific about it. Like, okay, my neck is hurting me. So we think about the neck, and on a scale of 1 to 10, what is that pain? 10 would be you can't turn your neck at all, right? 5 could be just like kind of a chronic irritation. So then you create that, you think about the pain. Okay, it's a 5. We'll call it a 5. And then you use an affirmation while you tap your point. So you say, even though so for example, and this is all in the notes, even though I have this pain in my neck, my body knows how to heal. I am safe and I am comfortable. And as you're doing that, the first one would be here on the side of the hand. I'm a stickler for doing right and left. So they call it the karate chop point. So if you hold your hand up like that, and then you just karate chop it on the side, okay? You can do both sides if you want, but we'll just do today one side, okay? Makes it easier. So the first one is, and then you could do your affirmation. Even though I have this pain in my neck, my body knows how to heal. I am safe and comfortable. And then you go to the second one. That's the eyebrow. So it's right on the inside of the eyebrow. So I'm right here, the eyebrow point. Then you go to the side of the eye, okay? The side of the eye. And you just tap it like 2 or 3 times. Then you'd go under the eyes, right? Under the eyes. And then again, we're doing our affirmation. Even though I have pain in my neck, my body knows how to heal. I am safe and comfortable. Then right up below the nose, below the chin, and then the collarbone. So right below your collarbone, even though I have this pain in my neck, my body knows how to heal. I am safe and comfortable. And then under the arm. So under the arm would be as if you're a lady, it would be like right where your bra strap is. It's kind of where when you just reach across like this, you naturally would be at that point. And all the points are bilateral, they're on both sides. So you could tap both sides. Some people do just one side. You don't have to do both sides. But even so, we could do, even though I have this pain in my body knows how to heal. I am safe and comfortable. And then the last one is right at the top of the head. So even though I have this pain in my neck, my body knows how to heal. I am safe and comfortable. And so when we're doing the tapping, so I have my hand here, is I'm just like lightly tapping like this. You can also, if I'm used to using my hands all the time with doing a lot of body work and needling. So if using 3 fingers doesn't work for you, then just do tap, tap like that. Okay. So whatever works for you. It is an exceptional one to help with pain management. It's also really good for anxiety. There is a lot of information out there about tapping. So definitely would recommend tap, tap, tap every single day. I would tap, and especially when you're experiencing pain. And then at the end, once you go through the steps, at the end, then you would kind of see, okay, how am I doing? Oh, it's like, oh, I have more mobility. Oh, it feels more like a 4, and then you can tap again. You can tap as much as you want to tap. So tapping. And then stretching, I did put a little thing on stretching and some easy ways that you can stretch. There's not enough that can be said about stretching. I mean, stretching helps with mobility. It helps with circulation. It's going to decrease pain. There's so much chair yoga, um, great ways to work with stretching and working with deep breathing while you're doing it. So with this one, I did with something very simple that I found, just doing something like tilting your head to the left. I guess that's my right, the other left, tilting your head to the right, rotating your wrists, right? If you can rotating your wrist, and all the while I'm talking, so it's hard to breathe deeply while I'm talking. And then rotating your ankles, just like you would with, like sit back in your chair and put out your foot and rotate those ankles, right? Rotating the ankles, both right and left. Lift, lift your arms up. I'm taking a deep breath, right? If you can't lift your arms up that high and you can only go to here, no problem. If you can't lift them up at all, no problem. Just doing whatever you can to just stretch it out. But it feels good to stretch it out, doesn't it? I love stretching out. Um, and then twisting. And again, if you have a hard time twisting and you're just twisting like you're sitting in your chair and you twist as far as you can. And then when you get to the twist point, deep breath in, when a deep breath out. And again with the other side. Um, then a great way, especially if it's not the end of the day, this is a great way to really kind of energize yourself afterwards, is to use a very loose fist. And a loose fist means this, like this is a loose fist, okay? Not like that, like a loose fist, okay? And what you do is you tap your arms. You get the insides first, and then you get the outsides, and then you could do either which way, inside or outside first, and you tap the arms, and then you can get your, stand up and get your legs. I guess you guys can't, I guess you know what my legs look like, but you tap, 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 tap. You can do the back, whatever you can reach. Those are great ways to energize the body. Great thing to do before you take a walk in the morning, is to tap the sides. Like get the outside, like the outside of your leg where you tap on the outside. Get the back of the legs if you can reach those. Get the sit in a chair if it's easier for you to sit in a chair and do that. But it's so good as a way to energize the body and kind of get it moving. I'll get the circulation moving. So stretching, and then our deep breathing for pain and relaxation. There is a gazillion ways to breathe. So this is not necessarily the only one, but it's an easier one to do, in my opinion. Let me have a little sip of water. So so the deep breathing, you can do it sitting or lying down. The best way to do it, let me get this so you can see me, is to put one hand on your heart and one hand on your kind of, I'm right on my abdomen, right? Where I'm kind of like on my pinky is like kind of at where my belly button is, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to inhale through your nose and you're going to count to 4. And when you inhale through your nose, what you want to feel is your abdomen, your lower abdomen go out, okay? So go ahead and breathe through your nose and then hold it for a moment. And when you exhale through your mouth to a count of 6, I didn't do that I'm talking while I'm doing it, but you want to exhale slowly to a count of 6. And what you want to feel is that when you inhale through your nose is your tummy's going to come out, your stomach is going to come out. And when you exhale, so go ahead and do it again. So inhale through the nose with your stomach coming out. Exhale with your stomach going back in. So that is a fantastic way. That's diaphragmatic breathing. Very good for pain management, very good for helping to open up the chest, helping, you could do that for at least 5 minutes. It's a great way to do a meditation, is to do that type of breathing. And then the last thing that I put on here is trying to keep some time for the questions. I hope I didn't go too fast or too slow. The last thing that, oh yeah, I love this picture. That's not me. That was a stock photo I found, but isn't that pretty? Do you guys see that? With the rainbow? And yeah, that was our stretching that we were doing. It feels so good to do. I just feel like I could sit here stretching like this. I know, yay. So again, improves mobility, circulation, and reduces pain. And then the very last thing, and I won't go through it because it's pretty straightforward. I wrote on our outline food as medicine, and I put a recipe for a seaweed salad, for a kale stir fry, a pineapple turmeric smoothie, a vegetable soup, and a broth, and the broths, the bone broth, as well as the vegan broth. So again, deep breathing. Let's see, deep breathing to reduce stress, relax your muscles, support your digestion, and reduce your pain. And I like this picture of this dandelion because that's what, when you really do some nice deep breathing, you'll feel like that, right? Like this feeling of letting go. It's like me and putting my arms up like that. I can't help myself now. So thank you guys so much for listening to my talk and dealing with my kind of my slides. They're okay. They're not the fanciest slides ever, but thank you so much. And I put my phone number, my email, and my website on there. So if you have a question, and if there's some people that have more questions about some of the things that I said, where I said I could email you, feel free, Martha, to reach out to me and I could send those links too. So I guess now is if anyone has any questions or comments or, and thank you so much for listening to me and attending this meeting today too.